Bienvenidos sean todos, espero que estén todos bien. Vamos a estar reaccionando al Tribeca Game Spotlight. Y después nos vamos a ir a reaccionar al de Game Pass. De Xbox, perdón. De Gamebox iba a decir. Esperen que pausa un cachito. No está en directo, ya está resubido, no lo vi en directo en su momento. Pero bueno, vamos a adelantar un poquito, total. Ya más o menos la intro está. Dale un poquito más gana, ahí va. A ver qué nos espera de la parte de Tribeca. Tribeca Festival.
The city is back and it's exciting.
It's a fantastic film festival that really gets to the soul and the heart.
Vamos a los juegos, no me interesan tanto los factores. Vamos.
A Highland Song.
Nightscape.
Tribeca es más tirando a lo indie. Ojo, no es grandes empresas. Si no me equivoco. No me acuerdo del año pasado cómo fue.
I must have climbed the hill behind the house 100 times.
Después tengo que ver si puedo encontrar el Digital Devolver, porque me parece que también hizo su conferencia. Pero déjenme que me fijo bien y lo veo.
There's another. And then another again. And after all that, then that's the sea. And I've never been there.
El arte no me parece desagradable.
Highland Song is a narrative adventure game set in the wilds of the Scottish Highlands. You play as Moira McKinnon, a teenager on her way to the sea for the first time. But to get there, you're going to have to find your way through the wild mountains and the valleys. You'll have to survive the weather, and you'll learn a bit about the stories and the history of the Highlands on the way.
Inkle is an independent game studio based in the UK, and we specialise in narrative games, so we make games in all sorts of genres, but our main focus is on games.
El anterior no me parecía malo, de la pibita con la montaña puede estar bastante lindo como para chilearlo de
Our most
un
famous
rato.
game is probably 80 Days.
Porque era como que tenías que ir con la pibita bajando la montaña y descubriendo las historias de las Highlands.
You can go around the world any way you like. The way that Highland Song works is extremely similar to 80 Days. You start in one particular point and you can choose all sorts of different routes through the Highlands in order to reach your goal. But it also ends at a single point because you're trying to reach the lighthouse where your Uncle Hamish lives by the sea.
Finding the right gameplay for a game like a Highland Song can be really difficult. Gameplay is usually built around loops and patterns, but good narratives aren't made out of loops. We want to make sure that the character isn't doing anything just for the sake of gameplay, but everything the character's doing has to make sense within the narrative.
So the reason that we've essentially created our very first platforming game is that it just makes sense for the character within this scenario to be jumping and scrambling over rocks. And it even has a rhythm action mechanic. So in many ways, it's the most gamey game that we've ever created.
Moira's platforming abilities in a Highland Song are quite realistic. She has a limited amount of time that she can climb. She gets hurt if she falls too far. She can rest to recover her strength. She gets affected by weather and affected by nighttime and affected by cold. A lot of our mechanics are built around the tension between knowing where you are and being lost. We have a map mechanic which is all about that. It's about finding little pockets of knowledge, learning the names of peaks and understanding the history of the peaks to help you find your way through this world.
At Inkle, we've always loved hand-drawn 2D illustration.
Vamos a ver qué más hay. Porque esto es todo el mismo juego. Ya más o menos vimos cómo es. Tampoco nos queda 24 horas mirando el mismo juego. K-O-O-P. Present. Un juego de ritmo con furros.
Co-op is a game studio that's based originally in Montreal but is now remote and
Este va a tener
worldwide.
público. Está mezclando dos cosas.
A cooperative.
Música y furros.
That we make all major decisions together. We decide whether we want to work 4 days or 5 days.
Estaría bueno que alguno diga alguna, o capaz que lo han dicho, yo nunca me he enterado porque el idioma, ¿viste? Pero estaría bueno que digan alguna vez, creamos el juego, como no sabíamos cómo mejorarlo, se nos ocurrió ponerle purros, que a la gente les gusta. Sería muy buena explicación de por qué de repente tu juego pasó a ser de purros. A ver, dale velocidad. Sí, en la Tribeca como que hay mucha charla con los productores, que no está mal, está bueno que hablen.
It was supposed to. It does. You did a great job.
So, what do you say, Fang?
We chose dinosaurs for Goodbye Volcano High for a couple of reasons.
Originally, when we presented the game to everybody else, it was meant to be a dating sim because, like, at the time, this was kind of like, hold up, end of the character.
Important to us.
And really tell a story that isn't necessarily so focused on dating, but really goes deep into the emotional aspects of the end of the world.
So high school already feels like it's the end of the world to most people, so it wasn't really that hard to hone in on the teen angst. It's really the hope that's tricky to encapsulate. High school to me is all about that sweet, sweet balance of doom and hope. Hope for the better future, hope for the dreams we chase and the ambitions we strive for. Those are things that can feel impossible to cling to, especially with something that can't be stopped and feels inevitable, like a giant meteor hitting you.
And communities all across the continent reacted to the news of a previously unknown space object this morning.
So, how do you deal with that?
It starts off very...
Como una aventura narrativa, doy por hecho, con algunos toques de...
In light of the whole space rock,
de juego de timing, a tanto para cuando hace algún recital o algo.
My chosen theme feels off.
What's the theme?
Using this year to, make an impact.
Our characters all have different methods of coping. Some double down on their ambitions, determined to accomplish their dreams before it's too late. Others slow down and decide to savor what time they have left, regardless of what their dreams are.
We can still win! Battle of the Bands! Asteroid or not!
The player has Fang.
Pensé que eran furros, pero son dinosaurios.
I think this means
Supongo que este es un pterodáctilo, lo único que no sé si tenían plumas en la espalda, pero bueno, por caso.
Our DNA and music is central to the identity
Momento
of the
timing.
people who make the game, and so it is central to the identity of the game itself and the characters within it.
There's no performance in this game that is separate from the narrative. It is essentially the same as having a scene of dialogue, but you're playing music.
We never climb, we never fell.
Hay un burro que está como yo, ya lo erró en la primera.
We scaled our way out of this water well.
No, era mucha data junta.
Fang is
Yo me derrumbo ahí, automáticamente.
gearing up for their future as a musician and then realizing that they may not have a future anymore. So those two things are kind of clashing in their brain for the music they're creating and singing in the game.
Bueno, puede estar interesante, como una bandita de dinosaurios. Puede estar bien.
Bonjour, je suis
Thomas.
Julien.
Bonjour, je suis Thomas.
Nous sommes les
Bonjour.
cofondateurs de Rundisk et nous sommes ici pour vous parler de Chants of Scénar.
Tu madre, por si las dudas.
Avec Chant of Scénar, nous avons voulu proposer une aventure originale basée sur le mythe de Babel.
On a essayé de vous plonger dans la peau d'un voyageur qui
Hasta ahora
débarque dans un
entendí
pays
dos
complètement
cosas,
inconnu.
Bonjour y Babel. Nada más.
Tout au long de son ascension, le joueur va rencontrer
Este
5
estilo de arte a mí no me
Chaque
gusta
peuple
nada.
a ses propres
Capaz
coutumes,
que es un
sa propre
juegazo, pero
histoire
el
et
estilo de
évidemment
arte
sa propre langue.
Comme chacun de ces peuples
me
parle
baja
des langues différentes, ça
muchísimo.
fait des siècles qu'ils ne se comprennent plus. Une partie du jeu et de l'aventure va consister à comprendre les raisons de cette division et peut-être essayer de rétablir l'harmonie dans la tour.
Creo que es tipo un
Quand
juego
on a
de puzzles.
compris qu'on voulait travailler sur les langues, on a eu cette idée de s'inspirer de la tour de Babel parce que c'est un mythe qui est très plus odieux, de les frapper d'une malédiction en leur faisant tous parler une langue différente. Ce qui est important et original dans le jeu, c'est que les langues sont des puzzles en soi. Pour nous, un mot c'est pareil qu'un levier, une porte, une clé. On comprend des langues en résolvant des puzzles, et résoudre des puzzles nous permet de comprendre des langues.
Ah, es un puzzle de dialecto. Qué hater. Es como que tenés que descubrir que el signo, porque los chabones dicen, hay varios dialectos por los que leí decía el toque, y como que después tenés que, con los dialectos, ir tratando de pasar los puzzles. Puede estar interesante. Lástima que vuelva a lo mismo. Vos guardás, por ejemplo, para una forma de letra, guardás el significado. Entonces después cuando te lo dicen, sabes qué te dicen.
Au-delà de l'aspect puzzle, le joueur devra explorer l'environnement, interagir avec différents personnages et participer à des scènes d'action.
Puede estar interesante, pero es lo que te digo. El estilo de arte me baja.
De créer un héros qui serait plus un traducteur, un diplomate, un scientifique quelque part, et qui soit dans cette démarche de réconciliation. Le personnage lui-même n'est pas un personnage violent, c'est pas un personnage fort, c'est pas un guerrier. Il va s'en sortir, il va trouver les clés autrement que par la violence. C'est important pour nous de montrer ça, puisque le moyen de...
Bueno, sí, más o menos.
Mais dans tes voies dépassées, puisque les langues ils sont à la fois l'obstacle et la solution.
Warrior Don't Pass.
On espère que vous aurez du plaisir à découvrir la tour.
Night Sky loses.
¿Qué es esto?
Is a 2.5.
Nightscape.
Nightscape is a 2.5D atmospheric adventure game where the ancient Arabian night sky loses its light.
You play as Layla, who is an astronomer who just loves to look at the night sky.
As Layla, players wield a magical astrolabe, restoring stars back to constellations in order to seek a path home. A key stellar cast member is the Goat Kid constellation. The Goat Kid decides to accompany Layla in her journey.
Más o menos. Manejas a la piba que es una astrónoma y tiene que devolver las estrellas a las constelaciones.
These days, people do not know much about constellations and the stories behind them, especially
medio al vuelo
Arabic
y le ayuda a la constelación de la cabra.
They're different from the Western or the Greek constellations. And so we've had a big research task finding out what those constellations mean, what the backstories are, and finding out how we can turn those ideas into gameplay elements.
The importance of the sky is having this sky-ground connection. Having Layla use the constellation's abilities to solve puzzles and help with Layla in defeating enemies.
The game being 2.5D, you can actually walk into the screen. There's a lot there that allow them to make the game very cinematic.
Es un juego en una vista 2.5, porque no es 2D nada más, no tiene profundidad.
We found
Pero no llega a ser un 3D.
in Nabil and a coder in Idris, and very recently we found a technical artist in Zaki, and those three
Se ve
are the
bonito.
powerhouse of the studio. And
Y ese
I think
equipo de
it's
trabajo,
really
pa.
genuinely amazing that we found those guys talent for making.
Bueno, demasiado el pedo, ya ahí ya me lo están bajando la banda.
Tree branch, the footstep of a scorpion walking.
Hay combate, por lo visto. Constelaciones malignas.
The voice of a scorpion is my voice, actually. And then overly processed. When the scorpion attack, when the scorpion dies.
Tremenda data tiró el pelado, que el boludo que está haciendo el ruido del escorpión es...
We're trying really hard to make the game feel magical, particularly the parts where the player is trying to figure out the puzzles.
Being in a country like the Philippines where my hometown had about zero pollution, so Nightscape appealed to me a lot.
There's about 65 million people in the MENA region who play games, and there's a very, very sparse amount of content being developed from within.
Como dato, chicos, acomoden la bandera, está durísima la
Very
bandera.
sparse
Ondea en
amount
el
of
viento la
content
bandera, y
being
más si va a
developed
velocidad el
from within.
barco.
We want
No
to push
está
that
tan
boundary,
trabada.
and we want to create fun and meaningful games with the Middle East in mind, utilizing its culture and rich traditions and history to really inspire ideas for
Puede
games
ser un lindo
going
juego
forward.
para...
And ultimately,
de vuelta también,
build a
para
bridge
chillar
towards
y para disfrutar visualmente. No se ve tan feo, y que juegue con las estrellas puede estar bonito. Vamos a saltar el copy, mono. ¿Qué estás cantando?
We can only be this And this
a role-playing musical where you control the song. You play as Grace, a college dropout who's not quite sure.
Role player musical, o sea que vos como que vos dirigís las canciones. Puede estar bueno. Anime la pela, 24 colores, pero para la gente que le guste eso.
Encounters the last of the Greek muses.
¿Te fuiste pijada? Ah. Alguien se fue pijado, ¿viste?
Passes on her powers, and Grace discovers that the Greek gods are alive and well and hidden in the modern world.
We think that Stray Gods kind of appeals beyond just fans of video games. It's a really unique story and a unique experience.
There are so many elements that go into this game to make it special that you can attach to any one of them and have an incredible experience.
Stray Gods is what we call a role-playing musical. It's not really a genre that's ever existed before.
You say you didn't kill Calliope. You have 1 week to prove it. What do I do?
Start singing.
This is a game with branching musical numbers where the key decisions in the story are made in musical numbers that change depending on your choices.
Lost girls, lost girls.
The way that we tackle music is one that people have never seen before. Boarding multiple branching paths that should link up to each other. There's a lot of considerations to factor in. It's very complicated, but it feels very worth it in the end.
Perfectly fine on her own.
Varios caminos para llegar al mismo lugar o a diferentes lugares dependiendo de tus elecciones.
In the world, the most talented people on Broadway. Like, what more could you ask for, really?
Being able to work with some champions like Austin Wintory, David Gator, Troy Baker has been nuts.
At the end of the day, it came down to our composer, Austin. He works some kind of dark magic and you get it all back and you're like, don't know how you transformed that take into this, but it's absolutely amazing.
You'll have to see. You'll have to see.
We have such incredibly complex, thoughtful characters in this game. Every single character in the game has the potential to be a favorite.
My favorite character is Eros.
I really love Aphrodite. I think she is beautiful.
Oh no, that's too hard of a question.
My favorite character is, I think, Orpheus.
My king, Orpheus. He's my favorite. It used to be Hermes, but Orpheus, emo king, love.
Look at me, who do you think I am? I'm saying Medusa. I am the #1 Medusa fan in the office.
I love Medusa, and I love Persephone, and I adore Freddie. But my favorite?
I reckon my favorite character is Freddie.
I'm really going to go against the grain here. My favorite character is Freddie.
Everybody's going to say Freddie, so I thought I'd say someone else as well.
But my favorite... Oh, yeah, I'll say Freddie. But Medusa and Calliope and Persephone. Like, it's really hard. Sorry.
There is a level of belief in the studio and the people.
We have a game.
Porque me entusiasmé. Porque parece interesante el juego. Y claramente la banda sonora va a ser muy importante, ya que es un juego que está muy relacionado con la música. Puede estar bien. Stray Gods. The Expenses. Acá ya venimos a algo más de graficote. Terminó un poco lo indie. Sigue siendo indie, ¿no? Pero... Ahora eso es algo que está muy bueno de la industria. Que hoy en día, aunque seas un juego indie, podés tener graficotes gracias al Unreal y a otros motores. Principalmente al Unreal, ¿no? Que es... no libre, pero tenés que pagar un poquito de cosas y tal.
Special about the television show was that it was almost like just another window of looking in at this same story.
So what's unique about the way that we tell stories is that we give our players agency over the character they're playing, which basically means that their choices shape the overall story, so they're actually living in the story as opposed to just following along with it.
When you're adapting a television property into a video game property, you have to think about what the fan is expecting and when they're coming into. This takes place years before the first season. We're getting to see the world through Kamina Drummer's eyes. She is a belter, somebody who's out in deep space and has grown up there, has never set foot on a planet, so her perspective is really different.
It's hard for me to look at these moons without thinking about the other research colonies exploiting all the resources on them and giving nothing to the belt.
I hoped to portray her, especially at the beginning of the video game, as a little bit more vulnerable and open, and to see the events that cause her to harden.
Just like Ceres,
bossing everyone around. Only this time, no dolls to keep you on the leash, yeah?
Se la puso. Oh, sentate ahí, estúpido. Bien puesto. Claramente es un RPG o un estilo así de juego de aventura. Ahora, mi pregunta es si es aventura y acción o solo aventura.
We have to think about it from what's a good interaction medium and changing that from what you may have seen in the show slightly to make sure that it's something that you can grok immediately and that feels good on the sticks, but that is also representative of what you see in the show. Those characters have really complex issues.
¿Hay combate o no hay combate?
It was a really
Los de baúl o es perder la baúl, que no sé qué será, tipo una válvula capaz, o perder la pierna. Es una banda de info.
It's a completely blank white room. You've got some tape on the floor, maybe a few things made out of wire to show where a door frame might be or something like that, but otherwise it's pure imagination.
I assume you didn't come here to talk about crystals.
We have a new target.
What is it this time, El Dorado? The Fountain of Youth? Let me guess. The Falcon Horde of Venus?
The UNN Urshanabi.
To experience that reality.
Just wanna...
Lo único que me faltaría ver, que no mostraron nada, es si va a haber despelote. O sea, despelote acción, no despelote... uy, se rompió una válvula, vamos a arreglarla. No. Despelote, algún bichito, algo por el estilo. Pero igual puede estar bueno.
I am Julián Cordero, and I'm the lead developer and programmer in Despelote. Despelote is a game about soccer, and it's a
este lo habíamos visto en otra de las entregas de Despelote.
When I was growing up, I played a lot of soccer. In Ecuador, the culture of soccer is very big, and if you're a boy, things I made were through playing. I sort of like figuring the game that you're kicking around. More than like creating like a soccer match, I knew that I wanted to just like your relationship with the ball and like how that sort of then relates to your environment. Immediately was thinking, okay, what should it look like? And there was this artist and musician, Sebastián. I really liked his work.
My name is Sebastián Balbuena, and I am in charge of the art in Despelote. That includes 2D animation, 3D modeling, and also the music. This is actually the first video game I have ever worked in.
I knew the game was going to be in 3D because I wanted the game to be like feel very physical and this like
to do that.
His previous work and his style sort of feels very nostalgic to us to have these like the background being so noisy, the characters being what's the set.
Acá puede pasar lo mismo de siempre. Puede ser un juego muy bueno, pero donde la estética no te llama, está muy jugado.
The buildings are all real buildings.
Sacando, vos ponele que el juego lo pongan a... Vamos a poner que lo ponen medio barato. 10, 15 dólares. ¿Vos te comprarías esto por 10, 15 dólares? ¿O esperá que te rebajas de Witcher 3 que te lo ponen a 3 dólares? ¿Me entendés? O sea, capaz que es un juegazo, pero cuando tenés otras opciones estéticas y jugablemente muy buenas por el mismo o menor precio, la verdad que no alcanza solo con que capaz que esté buenísimo. El juego tiene que llamar también de la parte visual. Se entiende que es un indie y es el primer proyecto bueno del artista, del programador, capaz que también, no sé.
Based on a lot of our memories, instead of like trying to recreate it directly one to one, it's more of like a fuzzy memory, and I hope that this moment in
no sé, puede estar interesante, pero la verdad me faltaría un poquito más. Pero bueno, eso es todo lo de la Tribeca. Interesantes a mi gusto el del espacio. Puede estar bueno, como una aventura. Si la historia está atrapante, puede estar interesante, aunque no haya acción. Si hay acción, la subiría un poquito más, pero si no hay, puede estar bueno igual. Y el de la música. El de la música creo que es el otro que puede estar muy bueno. El del cantando, ¿no? El de la banda. sino es que la chabona está cantando este. Este puede ser bastante interesante. Porque por lo que miré, la mayoría de los PJ son dioses o gente de la mitología. Atena, Perséfone, Afrodita, Medusa, Hefestos. O sea, eran todos personajes de mitología. Así que puede estar interesante por ese lado también. Pero bueno, esos serían los únicos dos así que me interesaron a mí de este grupo de indies. El primero de la pibita con la montaña tampoco está mal. Pero bueno, no es tampoco de mi gran interés. Espero que hayan como siempre disfrutado de esta mini reacción. Ahora vamos a seguir con otra reacción más. Así que nos vemos.